Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Free State and the Western Cape are the most corrupt provinces in the country. Well, that's according to a report from a civil organization, Corruption Watch. The body released its 12th annual corruption report titled Changing the Landscape. The report cited poor leadership and lack of accountability as being the key contributing factors to corruption and the loss of public trust in government. It analyzed over 46,900 complaints of alleged corruption to gain insight into the state of corruption in the country. Maladministration, fraud, bribery and procurement irregularities are some of the main types of corrupt activities that take place in government, but with little or no punishments being meted out to perpetrators. The public is left with the impression that those implicated in wrongdoing are given impunity. The 46-page report looks at various sectors in government, from local government, state capture, illegal mining, and a range of other issues. It analyzes the trends from the number of complaints received in those areas. Corruption Watch raised concerns about the declining state of democracy over the past 30 years. The organization says the slow pace of implementing the recommendations from the Zondo report and government's tardy response in addressing these concerns has left the public with the perception that no one cares. All right, let's discuss this further now. Melusi Ncala, acting lead coordinator for Stakeholder Relations and Campaigns at Corruption Watch, joins us now via video link to unpack this report. Melusi, thank you so much for your time. Of course, this is a very touching subject, particularly for a number of South Africans, just given the lay of the land in terms of where we are now as South Africans. I mean, just talk to us about the scale of the corruption in the country that your report speaks to, and of course, the root of this malfeasance.
Hi, Nati, and thank you for having us. So this is our annual report, and the whistleblower reports that we look at in this particular edition of the report are those that were reported during 2023. And during that period, about 2,100 reports of corruption were received. And thus, we have a total of more than 46,900 reports of corruption reported to corruption in the 12-year, 13-year period. And as you've outlined, it's very concerning. I mean, it's not to say that because corruption is being exposed in all these provinces, therefore they are the most corrupt. But definitely there are some serious issues that ultimately impact how people receive services or do not receive those services. And it's happening mostly at municipality level. And these municipalities are your city of Tshwane, the capital, city of Johannesburg, and city of Cape Town, which account for more than 70% of the reports of corruption that were received during this period. And we see it manifesting in terms of people not receiving adequate housing, health care, as well as it having a great impact on basic education.
And I want to talk about that. I mean, as we've also said in our introduction, South Africans, saw through the Zondo Commission, how rampant corruption was in the country. And as we continue to gain some insights into the state, of corruption in South Africa, one wonders, to your point, how this corruption continues to then manifest, particularly in these provinces where you found the deepest problematic issues. Just talk to us about what are the correlating signs in terms of what is being done that points to this corruption? And also, more importantly, how are then South Africans affected by it?
So when we look at corruption, I mean, there are different levels of corrupt activity. There's the petty types of corruption, which involve everyday acts happening in our streets. Most familiar of these are our interactions with maybe police officials or other government officials when we try to maybe get an identity document or a passport, and maybe for foreign nationals when they are trying to get asylum-seeking documents, for example. But then you have grand corruption, and this is typically the corruption that involves your political elite. At the moment, as the country knows, the speaker is facing allegations of bribery. And what we look at when it comes to those type of situations is that how does the law treat those who are powerful or perceived to be powerful versus the ordinary person? And this is where we then look at the infrastructure that we have in terms of the National Prosecuting Authority. And some of the issues have been that, in trying to strengthen the NPA, there are difficulties regarding capacity, resourcing, and also some of the skills that is needed to deal with sophisticated crimes regarding organized crime and corruption on a grand scale. So, and this is what we've been seeing, it leads to distrust.
Yeah.
More and more South Africans are not trusting officials, particularly politicians in Parliament.
And it would seem that this is having a ripple effect also on investor confidence. I mean, you speak of, South Africans not having that much trust, in the country, in our government. One wonders then, what does this mean, in as far as investor confidence is concerned? I mean, we know some work has been done in the last 5 years to tighten some of the processes in order to lessen corruption. But is this enough, to encourage the kind of investment that is needed to boost the economy? So as we, continue to wrap up our conversation, you spoke, of course, about accountability. And that's going to lead me now to my next question. I mean, where do we move forward from here? And how do we ensure that, reports such as yourselves, the Zondo Commission, that continue to unearth the inefficiencies amount to accountability?
Yeah, that's the ultimate question. But this test is not only in terms of our systems. It also relies highly on people like yourself and me and others who are aware of these corruption issues manifesting in our society. And then we need to make critical decisions, particularly in terms of how we vote in these forthcoming elections. It cannot be that we complain about people not being accountable in the last 5 years, that we have an arrogant government, but yet we go and keep on voting. Our voting patterns are the same. Or it cannot be that after elections, we sit down and think to ourselves, that's the sum total of our participation in the democratic process, because there are other interventions that we need to be involved in. Voting is just one of those elements in the democratic process that we can participate in. But, there are participatory processes that go further into appointing leaders into important positions, be it in the criminal justice sector or Chapter 9 institutions or Chapter 10, or even boards of SOEs like the SABC and ESCOM.